Part 50. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wan Ching Buletin Liang. Chapter 491. Most of the people in the banquet hall were Mao's military and political officials and their families. When the senior government officials saw President Boshin coming in, they walked in one after another and greeted him flatteringly. On the other hand, the military personnel crossed their arms and watched happily, obviously not wanting to come forward. President Boshin, are you here? President Boshin, would you like a glass of champagne? President, are you tired? Do you want to go sit on the sofa for a while? Almost everyone who felt they were qualified went up to say hello. After all, he was the head of state, and who didn't want to look familiar to him? Haha, don't be polite. I'm just taking advantage of Minister Renikoff's dinner to have a meal and introduce the two people around me. Bo Shen nodded and smiled like a flower, feeling very comfortable being complimented. This is Mr. Kishimoto Shoiki, the president of SoftBank Group in his childhood, and this is Mr. Malaya, the president of Tianzu TT Group. Mr. Malaya is also the richest man in Tianzu. Boshin introduced the two rich men around him to the senior officials around him. Some quick-thinking oligarchs instantly realized that something was wrong. As a president, Bolson could not be so polite to wealthy businessmen, even if they were the richest men in other countries. The senior officials thought deeper and realized that these two wealthy businessmen might be endorsed by Zairi and Tianzu. Both of these two are here to participate in the bidding for the variant tomorrow, President Boshin said with a smile. As soon as the sentence came out, everyone already knew it, confirming their suspicion just now. He stepped forward to greet the two of them with different thoughts. Haha, I didn't expect our Variang to be so popular. You two are really discerning. I wish you success in bidding tomorrow. A bunch of rainbow farts were served for free, and the scene was very lively. At this time, under the leadership of Renikoff, Li Qing and Ike also entered the banquet hall. The arrival of Li Qing and Ike instantly attracted everyone's attention. Some fair-skinned beauties with long legs kept casting their eyes on Li Qing. After all, being able to stand on such an occasion at such a young age must mean that his status was not low. The military and political dignitaries who had been watching the excitement just now came to say hello to Li Qing and Ye Ke, and even most of the oligarchs came to shake hands with Ye Ke and Li Qing. Of course, most of them are against Yike. After all, Yike is more famous than Li Qing in Mao. Only the top executives knew about Li Qing. On the other hand, Ike waved his hand indifferently, not paying much attention to the person greeting him, but kept joking with Li Qing next to him. Qing, you haven't been to this hotel yet, have you? I'm telling you there's something else going on here. There will definitely be a good show for the late-night banquet. Ike said with a wink. Li Qing still wanted to save face. In front of everyone, he ignored Ike at all. He greeted several senior military officials who were familiar with him. After all, New World started in the arms business, and there were many military bosses who were familiar with him. However, he had contact with very few senior government officials, which was also related to Li Qing's personal character. He believes that communicating with the military is much more straightforward than communicating with the government, without all the twists and turns. After saying hello, some people looked at Li Qing and then at President Boshin. As if realizing something, they took a few steps back. They are also afraid of harming Chayu. From a distance, Li Qing saw Boshin standing aside with a gloomy face and holding champagne, with a short man and a fat black man behind him. He raised his eyebrows and walked towards Boshin. The entire banquet hall fell silent, and almost everyone watched Li Qing walking toward Boshin, with expressions ranging from anticipation, worry, and gloating on his face. President Boshin, long time no see. I didn't expect your body to be so strong. Li Qingmian said with a smile. Boshin smiled stiffly on his face, haha, it's not bad. Thanks to Mr. Li Qing's stabbing in the back last time. We Ermao are very passive internationally. Boshin is not a vegetarian. He immediately brought the topic to the last nuclear bomb, allowing himself to occupy the moral high ground. Oh, a sale is a sale. The contract doesn't say not to mention the source of the nuclear bomb, right? Li Qing pretended to be innocent and spread his hands. These days, every spicy strip you buy has its place of origin. You don't think that the eagle sauce is really, can't you find out? Mounting true love on the lintel of a mountain gate, being a bitch and erecting an archway, how can anything in the world be so cheap? Money and goods are cleared. This has been the truth since ancient times. Boshin, you can't use your power to suppress others just because you are the president, right? Yik stepped forward and stood side by side with Li Qing, looking at Boshin with disdain. Obviously to support Li Qing, this move made the senior government officials who had taken action after listening to Li Qing's words shrink back. Boshin's face turned red with anger and he couldn't say a word to refute. Mr. Li Qing, what you said is going too far. President Boshin is thinking about the entire country, Kishimoto said seriously. Li Qing frowned and glanced at Kishimoto Shoiki, who was speaking. He seemed to have seen him in the news in his previous life, and an idea flashed in his mind as to who this person was. Shoiki Kishimoto? If my information is correct, your name is Sun Shoiki? Japanese and Korean. And you once claimed that you are a descendant of Sun Wu. Li Qing looked at Kishimoto Shoiki mockingly. What is that? He dares to say that he is a descendant of Sun Wu. Kishimoto's expression changed. He knew that his ancestor's surname was indeed Sun, but it was the Korean surname of Sunday. It had nothing to do with the Chinese god of war, Sun Wu. Saying this was just to put money on his own face. But I didn't expect Li Qing to investigate him so clearly. In fact, Li Qing only connected Kishimoto Masakazu with the name Sun Masakazu after seeing him. After all, in the last life, this old guy made a lot of money from the Chinese through Ari. There were reports about him in the news, and Li Qing had heard of it. If he guessed correctly, the Koreans should be behind Kishimoto Masakazu. Tisk tisk, after Zaizi knew about it, would he be furious at Kishimoto Masakazu's behavior? Li Qing walked up directly in front of Boshin, stretched out his hand and patted Kishimoto Masakazu on the shoulder. Be careful when walking at night, Mr. Kishimoto. Such a blatant threat made Kishimoto Masakazu a little scared, and he looked at President Boshin next to him for help. He, this is Ermao, not Southeast Asia. Mr. Li Qing, you may not be safe here. Boshin looked up and sneered. For a while, Li Qing and Boshin were at loggerheads, and everyone felt that the temperature in the entire banquet hall had dropped. They thought it was nothing that Li Qing threatened Kishimoto Masakazu, but it was unusual for Boshin, as the president, to threaten Li Qing. Yes, this is Ermao. Boshin, you have to remember this too. Ike looked at Boshin with a grim smile. Ermao is actually secretly controlled by the oligarchs now. To put it nicely, the president is the head of state, and to put it bluntly, he is the puppet of the oligarchs. Boshin was eager to change this, so he agreed to let Zaizi and Tianzu enter the auction to win funds for the next general election. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 492. Malaya took a few steps back, fearing that it would affect him. He didn't have so many evil intentions. He was simply entrusted by Tianzu officials to come to participate in the auction. It doesn't matter if he doesn't get the best he can get, since the variant is of no use to him anyway. Because it is not worth offending the New World and the oligarchy. Everyone in the banquet hall had different expressions. Some people were secretly happy to see Boshin defeated, while others hoped that the conflict would intensify. Let's see tomorrow. Boshin glanced at Li Qing coldly. It was obvious that he was not going to sell the Valiang to Li Cheng. Let's go. Boshin took Kishimoto Shoiki and Malaya directly out of the banquet hall. He originally wanted to suppress Li Cheng through this banquet, but unexpectedly he was met with disappointment. Li Cheng looked at the backs of Bo Shen and others, and nodded to Tian Yangshen and others. Tian Yangshen nodded slightly and led the people out of the banquet hall, but he came to Li Cheng not long after. Brother, this old boy has been prepared for a long time and has come with the presidential guard. He can't do anything. What Li Cheng wanted to do tonight was to kill Kishimoto Shoiki and Malaya first, but he didn't expect Boshin to be prepared. After listening to Tian Yangshen's report, Li Cheng nodded secretly. He already had an idea in his mind on how to resolve this matter. Boshin was just a small interlude. The banquet continued under Renikov's lively atmosphere, and Li Cheng and Ik also showed dignity and persisted until the end. After everyone left, Li Cheng, Ik, and Renikov were lying on the bed, enjoying the foot-pinching service of the beautiful woman. Li Cheng hummed softly, "Ik, is this a good show you said?" Ik smiled awkwardly. He didn't know that Renikov would do this. It was obvious that Renikov had a lot of fun in the past. Ik thought to himself, but squeezing the feet is quite comfortable, especially the little hands that are smoothed by the beauty, which gives a trembling feeling to the soul. Ahem, I specially asked a master from China to teach me. Is the technique pretty good? Renikov coughed lightly. It's not bad, the technique is quite authentic, Li Cheng chuckled. By the way, Ik, we have to delay the bidding time, at least we can't start the shooting tomorrow. I suspect Boshin is causing trouble. Judging from what Boshin said before leaving, he will definitely not let Li Cheng get the variant tomorrow. Well, this old boy secretly collected dirty information about me and wanted to mess with me. Why don't I mess with him first tomorrow? Ik had been prepared for a long time. Boshin thought that no one knew about collecting Ik's dirty information, but little did he know that someone had already secretly told Ik. Renikov, do you want to be the president? Ik squinted his eyes comfortably and asked. Renikov shook his head like a rattle. The two consecutive two-term presidents did not end well. He did not want to be the president. Everyone knows that the president is a puppet. It is better to sit in the position of defense minister and at least make money safely. When you make enough money, go directly to Europe or a beautiful country to enjoy the happiness. Oh no, you don't want all the wealth in the world. Ik tilted his mouth disdainfully. Renikov doesn't mind Ik's attitude. Now, almost all the top leaders in Mao's country are supported by oligarchs. The position of president is alluring, but also risky. It's okay to be willing to be a puppet, but what I'm afraid of is that after being president for a long time, I will have a strong desire for power and will not be willing to be manipulated by others. Once you resist, the outcome is already doomed, just like Boshin, who keeps making small moves behind the scenes, and oligarchs like I can't sit still. The three of them didn't stay in the hotel for long. They originally had other projects after pinching their feet, but Li Cheng refused. He didn't have much time to waste now, so he had to arrange everything before dawn. Tell me what you are going to do, Ik. In the speeding car, Li Cheng looked at Ik and asked with a smile. He, that piece of shit from Boshin involves money laundering, murder, and wife abandonment, but the most important thing is that he is treason. All the transactions with De Mao are recorded here. Ik pointed at himself and smiled. Li Cheng raised his eyebrows. He knew that politics was dirty, but he didn't expect that Mao's president would betray the country. This was really unbelievable. Well, this matter can't just be true, it can be mixed with some falsehood. Li Cheng touched his chin and thought. Ik glanced at Li Cheng and said, what do you mean? Well, let's add in tomorrow's bidding for the Variang. Let's say that the president, Zairi, and Tianzu operate in secret. Zairi gets the Variang, and Tianzu gets the control system? Li Cheng sneered and said, Since we must kill 3 birds with 1 stone, it would be good to just remove Boshin from power, but wouldn't it be better to eliminate 2 competitors at the same time? Okay, at dawn tomorrow, his scandal will appear in the newspapers, and I will ask my men to organize people to march on Congress. Yike's eyes lit up and he looked at Li Qing with admiration. He didn't expect that in such a short period of time, Li Qing could think of the best plan for him. The next day, at dawn, the scandal of the current President Boshin appeared in newspapers and periodicals. He abandoned his wife and children to keep a mistress, was corrupt, sold his official position to get a title, and lived a corrupt life. Even the faucets in the bathroom were gold-plated. In particular, the recent bidding for the Varian and Boshin secret operation to determine SoftBank and TT have also come to light. In addition, Boshin did take the 2 of them to the dinner last night and was photographed, which makes people suspicious. I am afraid that even Boshin himself is unable to defend himself. Boshin looked at the crowd of demonstrators downstairs of the Congress with a sullen face, and threw down the newspaper in his hand angrily. Asshole. He didn't expect the other party to act so quickly, nor did he expect that all his black materials were in the other party's hands. He originally planned to take control of Li Qing at today's auction, but he didn't expect the revenge to come so quickly and so fiercely. Mr. President, just now Kishimoto Masakazu called to ask about the auction. The president's assistant walked in and asked in a low voice. Let him wait, Boshin waved his hands irritably. Now he was so worried that he had no time to care about the auction. The postponement of the auction has become an established fact. Dong. The door of the president's room was suddenly pushed open, and a group of people in black suits walked in and took out their ID cards directly. Mr. President, we are from the Anti-Corruption Bureau of the Ermau State. There are a few things you need to understand. Boshin's face was darker than the bottom of a pot. The Anti-Corruption Bureau came so quickly. He didn't believe that someone had deliberately set a trap. You have no right to do this. This is the order of the National Assembly. Come with us. The man seemed to have been prepared and took out the warrant of the National Assembly. Impossible, it's only 9 o'clock, and the members of parliament haven't arrived yet. Take him away. The group stopped talking to Boshin and took him out of the president's office. Just as Boshin was taken out of the capital, a group of reporters rushed forward. President Boshin, are you really suspected of corruption? President, are all the faucets in your bathroom gold-plated? Mr. President, do you have other mistresses besides Polsava? Did you really sell national intelligence to the Russians? The newspaper said you have hemorrhoids, is that right? Boshin said nothing and got into the car directly. Through the gap in the crowd, he suddenly saw the window of the Rolls-Royce parked on the street opened. Li Qing and Ike in the car smiled and waved at him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 493. Hee, Qing, this time it's enough for Boshin to eat a pot, Ike said with a smile on his lips. Li Qing frowned. What? These information can't defeat him. According to Li Qing's idea, he would get rid of Boshin. After all, he would not feel at ease if Boshin was around for a day. Who knows when this mad dog would go crazy? Ike shook his head regretfully. There is no actual evidence for the most important crime of treason, and other crimes are not enough to remove him from the presidency. Li Qing then remembered that Ermau was not from his hometown and seemed to have a high tolerance for corruption. Tisk tisk, no wonder the Ermau degenerated like that in the previous life. It seems that the social disadvantages of the current Ermau have slowly emerged. That's right, Qing. I finally know why Boshin bites you like a mad dog and won't let go, Ike sued Li Qing. Oh? Tell me. Li Qing also thought about it and found that he didn't seem to have any major conflicts with Bashan, and he didn't miss his share of the holidays. Who knows why he acted like a mad dog this time and stopped him from bidding on the varian. There must be something fishy about this matter. Haha, in addition to the beautiful country, there are many countries in the world that do not want China to rise. I found out that behind Shoiki Kishimoto was not only Goryeo, but also Xyli. The beautiful country has no time to look around, so of course the subordinates have to take action. Especially in Xyli, it is afraid that China will become stronger, so it will be the first to deal with it. Yik told Li Qing what he had learned. You mean Xyli and Goryeo Bangzi have joined forces? Li Qing frowned. No wonder he was looking for Kishimoto Shoiki, this person is related to both countries. Li Qing knocked on the car window and fell into deep thought. He originally thought that the beautiful country had no time to intervene, but he did not expect to send his subordinates to cause trouble. And Zairi, Jaili, and even Tianzu all promised Bashan something, otherwise he wouldn't have the guts, Ike said angrily. His own dog bared its teeth at him secretly, and he was almost furious. No, we can't wait any longer. Let Renikov find a way to auction off the Varia before Pashin comes out. Li Qing clenched his fist and glanced at Ike. We can't delay this matter, we can only cut through the mess quickly. The longer the time goes, the more uncertain factors there will be, and it is uncertain what will happen in the end. He didn't know if there were so many twists and turns in the bidding for the Varian in his previous life. Anyway, the current situation was much more complicated than imagined. It's not impossible to auction immediately. As long as it is voted by the parliament, there is no problem for Renikov to preside over the bidding meeting, Ike thought. Don't worry, I'll take care of this for you, Ike said loudly, patting his chest. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Qing smiled playfully and said, Ike, you are so generous, do you need my help with anything? The relationship was good. He knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch. Ike must be asking for something if he was so enthusiastic. When Li Qing asked, Yikei's eyes began to shine. Qing, what do you think of me joining politics? I plan to become the governor of Dike State. Li Qing could hear the excitement in his words. Li Qing was surprised when he heard that Yike wanted to join politics. Politics? What do you think? Is it because money is no longer good? Or have you had enough of women? A big oligarch actually wants to enter politics. Will other oligarchs allow it? If it truly becomes a combination of oligarchs and political power, other oligarchs will definitely attack him because he has too many resources. I just feel that the puppets I support are disobedient, so it's better to take control of the country myself, Ike expanded. Wherever there is oppression, there is resistance. The puppets have rights and want to stand up. This is the case for former President Khalif and current President Pash, for example. Politics is not something we can touch. I think you should think about it carefully, Li Qing advised. Being in politics and being in business are completely different. A wrong strategy in business can cost you a lot of money, but a small mistake in politics can put you in ruins. Yike was silent after listening to Li Qing's words, but he still wanted to join politics in his heart. Li Qing could tell by looking at Ike's expression that he didn't listen to what he said. He smiled and shook his head. Ike, if you need political asylum one day, you can come to me. This was Li Qing's promise to him. No matter what happened to Ike, Li Qing thought he could still save his life. Hey, just wait, maybe I will become President Mao, and you will come to beg me then. Let me tell you, President Mao has many secret technologies of Mao Xiong. Yike looked at Li Qing with a smile, thinking that Li Qing was joking. He thought that he would never be able to have that day no matter what. Okay, stop talking nonsense and get the bidding done as soon as possible. I owe you a favor. Li Xin smiled and patted Ike. Ike nodded and said seriously, don't worry. Kishimoto Shoiki and Malaya were pacing restlessly in the hotel. They already knew that President Boshin was taken away by the Irmão National Anti-Corruption Bureau, and even the auction was postponed. Damn it, what's going on? Why did it happen at this time? One day later, even 1 day later. Kishimoto Masaichi looked furious. The Varian was clearly within his reach, but he didn't expect it to overturn before bidding. How could he not be angry? Compared with him, Tianzu's Malaya was much calmer. Mr. Kishimoto, I think something is wrong. It's too coincidental. As the richest man in Tianzu, Malaya naturally knows that there are not so many coincidences in this world, and even if there are, they are all man-made. He felt that Bo Shen's investigation must have something to do with New World Li Cheng. Damn it, he just wanted to get back what Tianzu needed quietly, whether it was an empty shell or an electronic control system. Yesterday at the dinner party, Kishimoto even spoke up for Bo Shen. He had been watching the show and kept silent because he was afraid of offending someone he shouldn't have offended. Malaya's eyes turned, and she trembled with fright when she thought of a possibility. Mr. Kishimoto, you go ahead. I'll go back to the room to deal with the company's affairs. Malaya looked at her phone and pretended there was a call. Kishimoto, who was in anger, had no doubts and sent Malaya out of the room. Malaya quickly rushed back to the room, used 5 minutes to pack her luggage, and took her assistant and bodyguard directly back to Tianzu on her private jet. He was just helping the Tianzu government, he didn't want to risk his life. Li Qing has the ability to kill Boshin, and he also has the ability to make himself disappear silently. If he doesn't leave now, how long will it take? He also has 17 or 8 wives and 30 to 40 children, and he cherishes his life very much. The uninformed Kishimoto Shoiki was still in the room trying his best to find out about President Boshin. He believed that as soon as Boshin came out, the Varian would definitely belong to him. You must know that the price Gao Li and Xiao Ri promised him was not low for the whale Yang Hao. As soon as Kishimoto finished hanging up the phone, he heard a rapid knock on the door. Who? Kishimoto shouted subconsciously. Room service, sir. Kishimoto looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was indeed the time for room service. He had no doubts and asked the bodyguard to open the door. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 494. Just as the bodyguard opened the door, a bullet shot out from a silenced pistol, directly penetrating the bodyguard's hard skull. The bodyguard fell straight to the ground without even a groan. Then several burly men rushed in, shooting at the bodyguards who were about to draw their guns with pistols. Blood flowers continued to bloom from their bodies, and soon they all fell to the ground. You are, Wu. Before Kishimoto Masakazu could shout, his whole face was covered by Zhang Dongzio's big hand. He, little devil, who do you say we are? Crow raised the brim of his cap. Hearing the Chinese language, Kishimoto Masakazu instantly realized that the person opposite was New World. Zhang Dongzio saw that Kishimoto Masakazu was honest and put his hand down. Kishimoto was panting heavily, and he was almost suffocated to death by Zhang Dongzio. Please tell Mr. Li Qing that I have no ill intentions. If there is anything wrong, I sincerely apologize to him. I know I was wrong. Kishimoto Masakazu bowed respectfully at 90 degrees. He knew that this was the only way to survive. Crow looked at Kishimoto Masakazu with a grim smile, stretched out his index finger and waved it in front of him. No. You don't know you are wrong, you know you are going to die. The gun in his hand was directly against Kishimoto Masakazu's chin. Crow pulled the trigger slightly, and the bullet instantly shot in from the chin and shot directly from the top of the head. The white and yellow stuff mixed with blood splashed directly on the ceiling, forming a bloody and weird pattern. Zhang Dongzio looked at the crow with blood spots on his face with disdain. Can you not be so rude? Hey, Where did you learn Northeastern dialect? It seems that you have a talent for languages, right? Crow looked at Zhang Dongzhi with contempt. Zhang Dongzhi rolled his eyes. Hurry up and work, we need to clean this place thoroughly, and no one can find any traces. Crow, everyone is responsible for their own work, you can clean up the ceiling yourself. Shiur, we are half-brothers. This is a bit difficult. Hey, Shiur, don't leave. Crow looked at the ceiling, and then turned back to find that Zhang Dongzhi had left Kishimoto Masakazu's room and walked towards Tianzu Mireya's room. It was not until he knocked on Mireya's room that Zhang Dongzhi realized that the little black fat man had already flown back to Tianzu with his assistant. Hey, your brain is pretty good. Zhang Dongzhi had no choice but to report the situation to his eldest brother Li Qing. Li Qing didn't care about Mireya either. As long as he didn't ruin his business in Ermao, he ran away, it didn't matter. In this way, the famous wealthy businessman in Zirizi disappeared quietly in Ermao. Zirizi later made negotiations many times, and even sent people to investigate in person, but no clues were found. Hometown, the Minister's Office of the Logistics Support Department under the Ministry of National Defense. Qi Gang, the old smoker, kept puffing out smoke, which made Minister Zhou Feng on the opposite side very greedy. You kid, can you not smoke in my office? Didn't you see what's hanging on the wall? Zhou Feng pointed to the no smoking sign on the wall. Hee, old regiment commander, don't think I don't know, that's what your health doctor put on you, telling you not to smoke. Qi Gang glanced at it indifferently. Second-hand smoke is not smoke. I tell you, Qi Gang, don't go too far. Zhou Feng slapped the table, at least give me one. Old regiment commander, just let you smell it, do you think other people dare to smoke in your office? It's just me, you can just be happy. Qi Gang exhaled a long column of smoke again. You. Zhou Feng waved his hand, forget it, let's talk about Ermao's matter. Do you think Li did Boshan's thing? Although Zhou Feng had a guess in his heart, he didn't dare to be sure. I'm not sure about Boshan's matter, but it happened so coincidentally, it should be related to brother Li. What I'm sure of is that the mysterious disappearance of Kishimoto Masaichi must be related to him, which is the usual method of the New World. Haha, simple, rough, no drag, and no evidence left, I like it. Qi Gang laughed. In his eyes, it doesn't matter how many days he dies. If he were in his place, he would be more ruthless and more straightforward. I'm worried about the Varian. Boshan's investigation and the postponement of the auction may cause more trouble. In addition, Li Kid offended Boshan, and Boshan might mess up this matter if he came out. Zhou Feng said worriedly. He knew that the Varian played a vital role in China's strategic deployment. Old commander, you often teach us that we will not obey military orders when we are abroad, and plans cannot keep up with changes. I believe brother Li is definitely capable of solving these problems. Qi Gang patted his chest and said. He has always been very accurate in judging people. After such a long period of contact, he knows what kind of person Li Qing is, and he has unconditional trust in Li Qing. Zhou Feng nodded without saying anything. Now he could only choose to trust Li Qing. Okay, go ahead. If there is anything wrong, report to me in time. Zhou Feng waved his hand. Huh? The old commander doesn't smoke anymore. Get lost. Watching Qi Gang walk out of the door, Zhou Feng was furious. Why didn't Qi Gang have to quit smoking? Xiao Lu, come here. Zhou Feng called the secretary. Minister, are you looking for me? The secretary hurried in after hearing the voice. Well, tell the support department to reduce Qi Gang's special supply of cigarettes by half next month. Zhou Feng spoke with anger. Seeing Xiao Lu in a daze, he repeated, didn't you hear? Smoking too much is harmful to your health. I'm worried about him. Minister, why don't you give Minister Qi a special supply of cigarettes to stop smoking? Xiao Lu also hopes that Qi Gang will quit smoking. Otherwise, the minister will be exposed to second-hand smoke every time he comes to report on work, and the health doctor will catch him every time. Explain. When Zhou heard this, he glared at his secretary. Get out, get out. The resumption of the Varian auction went smoothly. Ike knew that Li Qing was anxious and had helped him get most of the members of Congress. As soon as Congress passed it, Renikoff could be in charge of the Varian auction. Qing, the bidding for the Varian must be restarted the day after tomorrow at the latest. Ike took the vodka handed to him by Li Qing. Ike, thanks to you this time. Be sure to tell me if you need anything next time. Li Qing raised the wine glass in his hand. Hee, we are friends, why are you so polite? He clinked the wine glasses with Li Qing and drank the vodka in the glass in one gulp. Hey, Renikoff, are you okay with that? Renikoff next to him made an okay gesture. As long as the Congress passed the resolution, even Ba Xing could not stop it. Haha, Renikoff, there is one more thing I need your help with. Li Qing stepped forward and poured wine for Renikoff himself. Mr. Li Qing, please tell me, as long as I can do it. Renikoff was a little curious. He didn't know what else Li Qing needed now. Haha, I want to buy the original weapons and equipment, electronics and power systems of the Varian. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Bulletin Liang. Chapter 495. Hearing Li Qing's words, Renikoff looked embarrassed. The United States allowed Mao to bid for the Varian because the key parts such as weapons, electronic systems and power systems were removed. He was afraid that if he sold these to Li Qing, it would easily cause the United States to be disgusted, and he didn't know how to make things difficult for them at that time. Mao is not as rich as the Gallic rooster. Li Qing chuckled and looked at Renikoff, who was hesitant. Of course, these can't be shipped with the Varian. As long as you sell it, I will ship it away secretly, and no one will know where it is going. Li Qing still has this confidence. If he smuggles some smuggled goods in a few batches of smuggled goods, even if the United States' Faberla comes, he will not be able to find it. His smuggling channels are too wide, involving the entire Asian region. You can't check every ship, right? Renikoff still didn't speak, and he was always considering the pros and cons in his heart. Li Qing was not in a hurry. Renikoff, you know. Money in the New World is not so easy to get. He pointed out obscurely that it was a gift that Tian Yangsheng gave him the night before yesterday. Renikoff's mouth twitched a little when he heard it, and he couldn't help but put his hands in his pockets. Okay, but this matter is not something I can decide on my own, and my subordinates can't either. Renikoff smiled embarrassedly. Li Qing clenched his fists. He knew that this matter was stable. Money is not a problem, as long as the things can be sold. In fact, from the beginning, Li Qing's goal was not just the empty shell of the Variag. The empty shell of little value is certainly important, but if he could get a full set of equipment, it would be more meaningful for his hometown. He tried his best to help his hometown avoid some detours. Since the decision to sell has been made, Renikoff did not hide it. In fact, those things are all matching with the Variag, and they need to be greatly modified if they are to be used again. The military does not want to spend too much money on this, so the equipment dismantled from the Variag is all sitting in the warehouse gathering dust. Hearing this, Li Qing wanted to slap Renikoff in the face. It was a waste of natural resources. It was a waste of natural resources. If all the legacy of the Russian bear was given to China, China could save at least 20 to 30 years of time cost. He took a deep breath to calm himself down. Try to shorten the time. I hope to hear good news from you in the next 2 days. Whether it is the empty shell or the equipment, every second counts. Renikoff nodded and promised to shorten the time as much as possible. Ba Xing has been taken to the Anti-Corruption Bureau for 2 days. He has been extremely difficult in these 2 days, and the staff of the Anti-Corruption Bureau did not dare to use any means on him. Just asking about the process of each thing over and over again was too much for him. Comrade Boshin, please explain why there are several $1,000,000 in your account. According to your salary, you can't earn so much even if you don't eat or drink for 10 years, the staff asked patiently. I have said many times that this money is all won by gambling. The bank has transfer records and it is completely traceable, Boshin said impatiently. The money in his account was laundered in a specific way, and they couldn't find anything no matter how they checked. Of course, this amount of money is nothing. Most of his assets are in Swiss bank accounts. The current domestic accounts are just used to cover up. Comrade Boshin, you really communicated with the president of the Great Mao about the confidential affairs of the Second Mao country in private. For example, the policy of the United States in the Asia-Pacific region. The staff looked at the materials in his hand. It's completely nonsense. Do you have any evidence? Boshin knew the importance of this matter, and he would never admit it. Once the crime of treason is confirmed, not only will he lose his presidential throne, but his life may even be in danger. The staff looked up and glanced at him. The Anti-Corruption Bureau really had no evidence for this. If there was evidence, it would not be so polite to Boshin. Suddenly someone walked into the interrogation room and whispered to the staff for a long time, looking at Boshin while talking. Boshin felt a little uncomfortable being looked at. He obviously realized that the matter seemed to be related to him, and his heart sank. Before he could speak, the staff said, President Boshin, the latest situation, a rich man reported you for accepting political donations. Now I am formally interrogating you in the name of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. Everything you say will become evidence in court. The staff pointed to the camera facing Boshin. Boshin's face was shocked. Although political donations are the unspoken rules of the second-rate officialdom, they cannot be exposed. Once exposed, he will have to step down. Is it crazy? What good will this do him? Boshin yelled out of control. The staff looked at Boshin strangely. Ik? What does ik have to do with it? The person who reported you is Barlaev. Boshin stood there with his mouth wide open, mumbling for a long time without saying a word. Ik has always been very careful in his work, and he always sends it through the general manager of his subsidiary. This time, Boshin wanted to implicate Ikla but had no evidence. Boshin sat dejectedly on the chair. It's over, everything is over. Once he lost the president's skin, he couldn't fight anyone at all, let alone the leading oligarch who was the second to none of the second Mao. Now, he had to think about how to save his life. Well, I admit it. The change in Boshin's attitude surprised the people in the Anti-Corruption Bureau. He had just refused to plead guilty. He actually gave up everything. Now Boshin has only one idea, to go to the detention center and pretend to commit suicide. Only by making this an international incident can he guarantee his life. It must be said that Boshin is an excellent politician. He knows how to use his advantages. Only by turning himself back into a weak person that people sympathize with can he save his life. Once the news of suicide comes out, everyone will think that he is wronged. By then, his support rate will rise, which is also a good start for the upcoming election. And he can also use this opportunity to arouse people's hatred of oligarchs. Then maybe he can really become a powerful president. In a short period of time, Boshin has planned the way forward. Based on this alone, if it goes into politics, it is hard to say that he can beat Boshin with another brain. President Boshin's admission of political donations soon spread throughout Mao, and Boshin was soon detained. The resolution to revoke his presidency is also in full swing. Ching, my plan is good, right? Ik asked proudly. He told Li Qing about the deployment of the past few days, let his subordinates report Boshin by real name, and then let people ferment and expand the news, aggravate public opinion, and completely drag Boshin into the abyss. Li Qing didn't say anything but just chuckled softly. What? It should be okay, right? Ike scratched his head. I just feel that Boshin is not so easy to accept his fate. Li Qing shook his head. He would not believe that a dignified president could be overthrown so easily. If he only had this wisdom, he would not be able to become president. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 496. If I were you, I would send someone to keep an eye on him in the detention center, Li Qing suggested. Although I don't know what Boshin is up to, he will never give up the position of president so easily. Once a person has power, he never wants to let it go. Okay, after thinking about it, I thought it was better to be cautious. He had already got Boshin in, so he must not let him out. Although he didn't say it, he still thought that Li Qing was too cautious. By the way, Renikov has taken care of things. Would you like to accompany me to see him later? Li Qing looked at Ike and asked with a smile. Ike showed no interest and waved his hand. You'd better go on your own. I always feel guilty about buying my own land. Although I am a Jew. But I think you should wait a few years before shipping the equipment back, it's too conspicuous now. Yik told Li Qing what he was thinking. He had considered it after Li Qing revealed his plan last time, but he never mentioned it. Li Qing smiled and shook his head. No. I think now is an opportunity. The Boshin matter has become quite big and attracted most of the attention. There will be an auction for the empty shell of the Varian later on, but the focus during this period is not on me. And I also have a strict plan on how to transport it. He thought about this matter for a long time. When the incident cooled down, the value of the equipment would not be that great if he transported it back to his hometown. When Yike saw that Li Qing had his own plan, he didn't say anything more, but instead brought the topic to his political career. Qing, I have decided to run for governor of Dick State. I will use Dick State as a springboard to run for president in the next term. Li Qing didn't say anything. He knew that Yike still didn't listen to the advice and was very determined to participate in politics. Okay, Li Qing spread his hands, not knowing how to persuade him. Are you going to tell him that one of his TV station actors will be elected president in the future, and stab him in the back and send him to jail? In that case, I'm afraid Ike will not be regarded as a lunatic. Even Li Qing himself found it unbelievable that any country would be so childish. Just because an actor played the role of the president, he really became the president. All I can say is that the world is so big and full of wonders. After Ike went out, he ordered people to keep an eye on Boshin in the detention center. Li Qing took Wu Wu and Zhang Dongzhou to a secret military base on the outskirts of Kiev. Mr. Li Qing, you are here. I have arranged everything, Renikov greeted with a smile. Li Qing nodded and followed Renikov to warehouse number 21. The door of the warehouse was slowly opened. It must have been a long time since it was opened. The chain was short of oil and made a clicking, rubbing sound, and dust continued to fall from the top of the door. The lights in the warehouse were turned on instantly by the soldiers, and Li Qing and others looked into the warehouse with anticipation. I saw that the warehouse was full of piles, and many things were piled haphazardly in the corners, covered with dust. The first thing that caught his eye was a plane. Li Qing's pupils shrank when he saw the plane clearly. The plane was so full of dust that the original color of the plane could no longer be seen clearly. But the streamlined and slender fuselage made Li Qing recognize the model of this aircraft immediately. Such a conspicuous model is hard to forget after just one glance. The Tu-160 strategic bomber was affectionately called the White Swan by military enthusiasts in its previous life. This was also the reason why Li Qing recognized it at first sight. The entire model was as slender as a swan. Mr. Li Qing? Mr. Li Qing? The equipment of the Varia is here. Rennikov enthusiastically guided. Li Qing came back to his senses and calmly followed Rennikov's guidance towards the corner. He saw dusty and broken Varia equipment piled in the corner. Apparently the soldiers were very rough during the disassembly, and there were even cracks in some places. But Li Qing didn't care very much. Rennikov didn't dare to fool himself with the rags, these were definitely still useful. Thank you, Rennikov. You helped me a lot this time. Li Qing shook hands with Rennikov cordially. I'll send someone to pick up these things tomorrow. Li Qing had already contacted professionals at a high price to dismantle these devices and break them into parts, which would make transportation easier. Li Qing took out the cigarette case from his arms, took out a cigarette and handed it to Rennikov, then lit it himself and took a deep breath. What's that thing about? Li Qing held the cigarette in his hand and pointed at the white swan that occupied a small half of the warehouse. Rennikov blew out a puff of smoke and looked at the dirty Tu-160. Oh, the Tu-160 strategic bomber will be taken to the military museum in a while. Oh, Li Qing's eyes flashed with joy when he heard this. Seeing that Li Qing was curious, this was not a confidential matter. Rennikov said directly to Li Qing, the disintegration of Maoxiong gave us 19 brand new Tu-160 strategic bombers, 8 of which were used to repay the debt owed to Maoxiong. Of natural gas payments. The beautiful country paid $15 million in financial aid, and the condition was to dismember the cross-figure -160. This is the last one, and it will eventually be harmless and sent to the museum. Rennikov shook his head regretfully. They had no way to deal with the joint suppression of De Mao and beautiful country. Li Qing threw away a half-smoked cigarette and crushed it with the sole of his shoe. Dongziu, Crow, you two stay away. I have something to talk to Minister Rennikov about. Zhang Dongziu and Crow nodded and walked to the door to be on guard. Rennikov frowned and waved away his guards. Mr. Li Qing, just say what you want. Li Qing was silent for a while, pointed at the Tu-160 strategic bomber and said, $8 million, I want it. Mr. Li Qing, this is not $12 million. No, this is really not $15 million, I don't care how you divide it, Li Qing said firmly. Museum. I'll add another $2 million, a total of $17 million. Rennikov, I think the museum only wants a shell. You can't even make a shell with $2 million, right? Li Qing looked at Rennikov with a smile. Rennikov pondered for a long time. The ones sold to Russia cost about $25 million each, but most of them went into the treasury. Li Qing has $17 million here. He can deal with other people and the aircraft shell for $200, and he can get $15 million in return. This deal can be done. Okay, Rennikov nodded and said in a high-sounding manner, instead of letting the Tu-160 rot in the military museum, it is better to let it realize its value. Yes, make the best use of it. Li Qing was overjoyed with this unexpected gain and asked Rennikov to take him to other warehouses for a tour. In case there were other junk, he could pack them up and take them back. But what disappointed him a little was that other warehouses were really junk, and Li Qing didn't even care about the things from World War II. While chatting and laughing with Rennikov and visiting the warehouse, Li Qing received a call from Ik. Huh? Ba Xing committed suicide. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 497. I didn't expect this old boy to be so stubborn that he committed suicide. Mater, before committing suicide, he even wrote a suicide note, accusing himself of being framed. I clicked his tongue in surprise. From the bottom of his heart, he never thought that this old boy Boshen would commit suicide. However, Li Qing frowned when he heard that Boshen committed suicide. Are you dead? No, he was discovered by the prison guards and saved. He is in the hospital now, and the problem is probably not serious. Kill him, Li Qing spat out 3 cold words. Not far away, when Renikov heard Li Qing's words, he suddenly felt cold all over and his calves twitched unconsciously. What? Ike on the other side of the phone asked in surprise. He believes that Boshin is in jail now and poses no threat to him. There is no point in killing him now, and he may cause trouble. Hurry up and take advantage of the public opinion before it rises. Boshin wants to be miserable and is very likely to return to the throne of president. Li Qing didn't have time to explain to him now. If we don't kill Boshin before the news of his suicide spreads, it will be impossible to kill him once he returns to the international spotlight. Only then did Yike realize that something was indeed wrong with the situation and understood the meaning of Li Qing's words. Huh? Okay, I'll arrange someone now. Through Li Qing's advice, Ike also realized the purpose of Boshin's suicide. No longer hesitating in his heart, he immediately sent the killer to the hospital. Li Qing put down the phone and let out a sigh of relief. As expected, only the dead are the quietest. Then he smiled and pointed to the dismantled equipment of the Varian in the corner and said, Renikov, I'm afraid your soldiers will have to work hard. I will transport these away tonight. Just in case, he had to act early. Once the things were in his hands, no one could take them away. Renikov also knew that the matter was urgent. No problem, I will send someone here to take care of it. Compared with the empty shell of the Varia, people paid almost no attention to the dismantled junk. Li Qing looked at the 2-160 again, which made him excited. As for the 2-160, I will find professionals first. Once the professionals arrive, I will immediately break it into pieces and transport it to Java. He said deliberately to Renikov. Renikov felt much relieved when he heard that it was sent to Java. He knew that Li Qing had his own territory there. As long as Mao is not discovered by Ying Zhang, he will not admit it even if he is beaten to death. Anyway, De Mao also has a 2-160, not to mention his last 2-160 is staying in the military museum. At this time, Boshin was lying on the hospital bed. He didn't open his eyes until the doctors, nurses and others left the ward. The first step was successful. He touched the marks on his neck and clenched his fists. In the detention center, after hearing the footsteps of prison guards patrolling, he tore his clothes into strips and deliberately gave the appearance of hanging himself. The plan went smoothly, and even the doctor didn't see any clues. Now he is just waiting for public opinion to ferment and return to the public eye as a weakling. By then no one can touch him. The debt between Yike and Li Qing can be settled slowly. Boshin was lying on the hospital bed, planning every next step. Well, there are still a few oil fields in the west. He has already planned how to please the beautiful country and get the beautiful country to support him. Squeak! The door was gently pushed open, and Boshin quickly closed his eyes. There were guards guarding the door, and the people coming must be doctors and nurses. Just as he imagined, the nurse came with a trolley to inject him with liquid. Mr. Boshin? Mr. Boshin, came the itchy female voice. Boshin still pretended to sleep and ignored her, although he also wanted to see the beauty of the woman. Boshin only felt a sting in his hand as the syringe was inserted. Then he felt extremely sleepy, and the word tranquilizer popped into his mind. No, why are you sedated? Boshin tried his best to open his eyes. The nurse standing in front of her was wearing a mask, with bits of red hair peeking out from the nurse's cap. She saw Boshin open his eyes, slowly bent down, and whispered in Boshin's ear, Mr. Boshin, have a good rest. When you wake up, you will find that, you have reached hell. Boshin only felt that his tongue was numb and he could not speak a word. His eyelids were also fighting. He tried his best to open his eyes, but everything was in vain. Under the influence of the medicine, he slowly stopped breathing. When the female nurse saw Boshin stopped breathing, she opened his eyelids again, and his pupils were obviously dilated. When he opened his eyelids, he also saw a corner of paper sticking out from under Bashan's pillow. She picked it up curiously and took a look, then with a look of surprise on her face, she folded the paper and put it in her pocket. Then I felt relieved and put on a bottle of normal saline, pushed the cart and left. When Bashan's body was discovered, his whole body was already stiff. News media and newspapers had been preparing to interview Bashan for a long time, but the hospital suddenly announced the death of President Bashan. President Bashan died in the early morning after treatment failed. Subsequently, the detention center released the confession written by Bashan to the public. The confession mentioned various bad qualities of Bashan in the years since he became president, including marital infidelity, corruption, joint businessmen's control of the country's oil fields, and reselling of state-owned assets. While people were abusing Bashan, he had to sigh that Bashan was indeed a man. At least he admitted what he had done and was more courageous than most people. But the extremists still scattered his ashes. Of course, this is a later story. Li Qing was not really relieved until Bashan was completely solved. Sure enough, the best way to solve a problem is to solve the person who created the problem. Simple, rough, and direct. It was a close call, Qing, thanks to your reminder. Guess what I found under Bashan's pillow? Ik raised a piece of paper in his hand. What? Li Qing chuckled. The list made by Bashan. He started to contact these people in the detention center, and they were going to build momentum for Bashan. Haha, Bashan died before the message was sent. Ik laughed. But in fact, when he saw the list, he was also shocked. The people on the list were not only high-level government officials, but also several wealthy oligarchs. It should be that Bashan promised them something, most likely about Ik, because the resources Ik controls are really coveted. If their plan succeeds, it is really possible to trick Ik. If they can't kill him, they can also cut a large piece of meat from him. Alas, even ants try to survive. I felt something was wrong when Bashan confessed. I didn't expect that I would guess it right. Li Qing sighed. Bashan's fate had been doomed long ago. It was unknown whether he was a traitor. Neither the United States nor Russia would let him be a fence-sitter. In recent years, Bashan has gained a lot by being a fence-sitter, but this situation will not last long. If Ik does not take action this time, he will be taken down by pro-American or pro-Russian forces next time. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 498. Li Qing has sent Tian Yangsheng and others to receive the broken equipment of the Varian, and has carried out precise disassembly again. It is believed that it will soon be able to go to Southeast Asia with the smuggled goods. Yes, at least go to Southeast Asia first. Going directly to China is too sensitive. It is better to go to Southeast Asia first and then transfer to Hong Kong. When the things enter Hong Kong, there will naturally be someone in my hometown to pick them up. However, this matter has not been contacted with my hometown yet. What makes Li Qing a little worried is the white swan. Now there is no reliable professional. It seems that Renikov will not help with this. After all, there are many people and many mouths. If this matter is exposed, he will be in trouble. Li Qing thought about it and decided to send someone from his hometown. He asked Zhang Dongzhou to pick a phone card from the box and install it on the mobile phone. In order to prevent being eavesdropped, he asked Zhang Dongzhou to prepare hundreds of phone cards for him, so that he would not have to say some weird secret words every time he called Qi Gang. After a series of processes, Li Qing finally dialed Qi Gang's number. At this time, Qi Gang was holding a regular meeting in the small conference room. Minister Zhou Feng and other bigwigs of the same level were all there. He was going to hang up the phone, but then he thought that it was an internal call and it should be an urgent matter. But when he heard Li Qing's voice, he smiled, talked to Zhou Feng next to him, and got up to answer the phone. Brother Li? Changed the phone again, Chi Gang said with a smile. Haha, safety first. Brother Chi has a situation, I want to tell you. Li Qing's words made Chi Gang's heart skip a beat. He was afraid that something unexpected would happen to the Varian. He patted his chest and made a promise to the old commander. What about the Varian? Chi Gang couldn't help asking. Count. Li Qing was stunned for a moment when he heard the voice, and continued. Chi Gang pursed his lips tightly, and felt that the Varian was very likely hopeless. He took a deep breath. Brother, say it. I can hold on. Li Qing scratched his head, and he heard Chi Gang on the other side take a deep breath. I've got the original equipment on the Varian, and it will be shipped in the next 2 days. You can send someone to pick it up in Hong Kong in a week. Li Qing smiled slightly. Hey, that's not strange, eh? What are you talking about? Chi Gang was so excited that he spoke in his hometown dialect. Brother Li, what did you say? Varian equipment. Chi Gang's awe was so loud that even the big guys in the conference room heard it. Zhou also frowned and smiled. This Chi Gang is still so reckless. Back then in Lishan, it was his roar that scared the monkeys on the opposite side and saved my life. The other big guys were instantly diverted by Zhou attention, and they all joked about the fact that he had fought with bayonets but not monkeys back then. Li Qing was also startled by Chi Gang's exclamation. Yes, brother Chi. The Varian shell has not been auctioned yet. I'll get the equipment back first. Chi Gang slapped his face in disbelief. He was afraid that he was dreaming. You know, China has made great efforts, and Mao has always refused to sell the Varian equipment. Everyone knows that this is the United States' technological blockade against China. No one dares to risk offending the United States and sell core technology to China. Ahem, Brother Li, did you take down the electronic control equipment or the power equipment? Chi Gang was choked by his own saliva and asked in a low voice. All taken down. Chi Gang heard this, his eyes were as big as copper bells. All taken down, even his voice became a little sharp. He actually took down all the equipment of the Varian quietly. You know, the power equipment, electronic control equipment and weapon equipment of the Varian are not small. At that time, China only wanted electronic control equipment, and other equipment could only be thought about. Li Qing not only took down the electronic control equipment, but also took down other equipment. If the empty shell of the Varian is really transported back, China will instantly have 68% of the aircraft carriers built. Chi Gang wanted to shout excitedly, but he knew that this was the general staff, and there were big guys in the meeting room. After trying to calm himself down, Chi Gang said, Okay, don't worry, Brother Li, I'll send someone to Xiangjiang right away. I haven't set off yet. It's okay. I'll ask them to wait in advance. Li Qing shook his head with a smile. By the way, Brother Chi. There's one more thing. Chi Gang was stunned. One more thing? I found a Tu-160 strategic bomber in the Mao military warehouse, but I don't have many professionals, and I can't transport such a large plane back. Chi Gang's head was buzzing now. He couldn't hear what Li Qing was saying. His mind was full of the graceful figure of the white swan. After a while, Li Qing finished talking about the situation of the Tu-160. When he heard no sound from the other side, Brother Chi. Brother Chi. Chi Gang came back to his senses now. Brother Li, what did you say? Bye-bye, white swan. Li Qing rolled his eyes. Good guy. It turned out that he talked for a long time, but Chi Gang only heard a little bit of the beginning. There was no choice but to narrate it again. Chi Gang was speechless for a long time. White Swan is currently the world's largest and heaviest variable sweep-wing aircraft. Not only Russia and the United States want to get it, but China is also coveting it. I didn't expect that there was an even bigger surprise behind the surprise. It was really like a scholar looking at the list, happy and surprised. Lack of people? No problem. I'll report to my superiors. There are many experts in the aircraft manufacturing plant, and they are happy to do these rough jobs. Qi Gang finally spoke, and he asked the experts from the aircraft manufacturing plant to go over. Brother Qi, keep a low profile. Don't let other countries know. Just send some engineers who know how to disassemble aircraft to give guidance. Li Qing advised with a smile. If a team of experts really came, it would be all exposed. The Tu-160 strategic bomber is too precious, otherwise Li Qing would have sent someone to the Chinese autonomous province. Oh, don't worry. Send someone who knows the business. Qi Gang smiled. The two chatted for a few more words and hung up the phone. At this time, Qi Gang's excitement calmed down. He tidied up his military uniform and military cap, and walked into the small meeting room with his head held high. When he arrived at the meeting room, Qi Gang said nothing and wrote down what Li Qing said in his black notebook. He pushed the notebook towards the old regiment leader Zhou Feng, winking and smiling at him. Zhou Feng was stunned, thinking that he had gone crazy. When Zhou Feng saw everything recorded in the notebook, the expression on his face changed from surprise to joy, and then to great joy. Even his hands were shaking a little. He knew the meaning of these few short sentences. The content was very sufficient, enough to make some of the family's technologies overtake others. Zhou Feng coughed lightly to soothe his vocal cords that were shaking with excitement. He endured until the end of the meeting agenda and heard the Minister of Defense. Do other comrades have anything to communicate? Ahem, I have something to report to you and the leaders present. Zhou Feng's words instantly attracted everyone's attention. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 499. Comrade Zhou Feng, please speak. The Minister of Defense looked at Zhou Feng happily. In his impression, Zhou Feng was relatively stable and usually reported to him first. This time he saw excited joy on the left-winger's face. It seemed like this was a good thing. Minister, leaders, I have the latest news. Li Qing has bought the original equipment of the Varian, not only electronic control equipment, but also weapons and power equipment. And Zhou Feng clenched his fists and said excitedly. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the discussion of a group of big guys. The first reaction of the big bosses was disbelief. The Chinese nation had not been able to take down the original equipment. How could Li Qing take down these equipments on his own? Minister Zhou, is this, the information wrong? After all, the bidding for the Varian has not started yet. Yes, Xiao Zhou. You have to be careful about this matter. The beautiful country is so guarded and guarded, how can Li Qing get it so easily? It's a bit unbelievable. Li Qing's ability is so great. A group of big guys kept saying this, but they didn't quite believe it. After all, the equipment inside was taken away before the empty shell was received, which was a bit outrageous. Zhou Feng saw the Minister of Defense in position C looking at him and said hurriedly, how dare I lie to you at the meeting? It's true. These will be sent to Xiangjiang in a week, and some of them are starting to be shipped now. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience fell silent, and everyone looked at Zhou Feng in disbelief. A long time. Really? Is this true? It can't be true, can it? Hiss, okay. In other words, we will soon have an aircraft carrier with a construction level of 68%. Only then did the Minister of Defense smile and say, okay, not bad. It can save us a lot of time. Minister, I haven't finished speaking yet, Zhou Feng said with a smile. I really didn't want to sell a lawsuit. I was just about to say it but was abruptly interrupted. Oh? You continue. The Minister of Defense also became interested. He wanted to see what kind of surprise Zhou Feng could bring him today. Ahem. Zhou Feng cleared his throat, and the conference room suddenly became quiet. Everyone looked at him expectantly. Li Qing bought Mao's last 2-160 strategic bomber. Zhou Feng's words were no less than a grenade, exploding in the hearts of all the big guys. Did I hear you correctly, White Swan? 2-160. This is not a joke. This, Lao Zhou is even starting a lawsuit. Surprises come one after another. Li Qing has his own tricks. Compared with Li Qing, I feel old. Haha, what, can you exchange your old bones for a 2-160? After all the big guys were shocked, the chat went off track, but it basically focused on the name Li Qing. Li Qing gave them a huge shock today. I think back when China was trying to get the 2-160 strategic bomber, the Minister of Defense personally contacted the Mao military and wanted to take the White Swan home at double the price. It's a pity that Mao rejected it. They didn't want to offend the beautiful country for tens of millions of dollars. The Minister of Defense had no expression on his face just when he heard about the equipment of the Varia, but when he heard about the 2-160, the look of surprise on his face flashed across his face. Back then, for the sake of figure 160, he had made a lot of noise, but the other party did not agree. Unexpectedly, Li Qing took care of the matter. The Minister of Defense nodded secretly. I thought this young man Li Qing was very capable, but it seems that he underestimated his ability. That's right, Li Qing encountered a problem. He couldn't find professionals to dismantle the 2-160, so he needs our help, Zhou Feng continued. This problem is not a problem. We have experts who specialize in studying the 2-160. Let the experts bring engineers there and try our best to get the 2-160 back as soon as possible. The Minister of Defense knocked on the table. This matter cannot be taken carelessly, and the 2-160 must be shipped home before the beautiful country reacts. As soon as you get home, even if the King of Heaven comes, I won't be able to take it away. Zhou Feng nodded when he heard this. As long as the big boss speaks, the next thing will not matter. Okay, does anyone else have anything else to do? The Minister of Defense looked around, but no one said anything. Okay, let's break up the meeting. Zhou Feng comes to my office. Although the meeting was dismissed, several big bosses continued to sit in the office and discuss in a lively manner. Zhou Feng did not dare to neglect and followed directly behind the Minister of Defense. All the way to the office, Zhou Feng carefully hung the minister's coat on the hanger. Sit down, Xiao Zhou. The boss looked at Zhou Feng cheerfully. Zhou Feng heard this and sat on the chair opposite the boss. The Varian equipment and 2-160 are doing very well. I leave this matter to you to arrange and transport it back to the country as soon as possible, the boss repeated. Obviously he takes this matter more seriously. Don't worry, Minister, I promise to transport the things back safely. Zhou Feng also expressed his attitude. The boss took a sip of water and was silent for a while. I have also heard about Li Qing. He is patriotic, well organized, and knowledgeable. Zhou Feng was very happy when he heard the boss praising Li Qing. Yes, his ability is also outstanding. Alas, if I had known him 10 years earlier, I would have dragged him into the army no matter what. Zhou Feng really likes talents, especially Li Qing, who is a rare talent. His tactics and strategies in the Java Chinese Autonomous War are also remarkable. Unfortunately, Li Qing's power is growing stronger and stronger, and he is no longer suitable for the Chinese army. To be honest, he is more useful now. His ability may not be able to be exerted to the current level in the army. The boss shook his head and denied Zhou Feng's idea. He saw more deeply than Zhou Feng. A hero like Li Qing will not be bound by anyone. Forcing him to join the army will be counterproductive. We already owe Li Qing a lot of favors, and favors must be paid back. Simply using it will make people feel uncomfortable, not to mention that Li Qing has done enough, the boss said softly. Zhou Feng was stunned when he heard this. What do you mean? Li Qing was indeed wronged by the gambling incident last time. He risked his life for us, so we can't let him suffer losses all the time, right? The boss continued with a smile. I personally asked for 3 2,500-ton 053 series missile frigates from there. They are all at the shipyard in Biao. They were painted old and given to the Java Chinese Autonomous Province. Remember, this is the ship that Li Qing bought and we eliminated. The boss emphasized the words buy and eliminated. No matter whether others believe it or not, China is selling junk anyway. Okay, Minister. I'll contact Biao shipyard as soon as possible. Zhou Feng nodded excitedly. He felt a little embarrassed to keep taking advantage of Li Qing. This time, it was more or less a return. No matter how good the relationship was, it needed to be maintained. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 500. Zhou Feng walked out of the minister's office excitedly, carefully calculating in his mind that the 3 2,500-ton 053 series guided missile frigates cost almost 1.5 billion. This time it was a big deal, and I was able to give an explanation. The kid Qi Gang kept saying how much he owed Li Qing in front of him every day, but now he was speechless. As soon as Zhou Feng arrived at his office, he saw Qi Gang smoking with his legs crossed. Humph, I'm already at the butt of the cigarette, and I still don't want to throw it away. Zhou Feng took off his coat and hung it on the hanger, snorting coldly. Oh, there is no other way. You, the old regiment leader, personally ordered me to give me a special supply of cigarettes at half the price every month. I can't wait to smoke the butts of the cigarettes. Qi Gang looked up at Zhou Feng with a sad face. Since the last time his special supply of cigarettes was reduced by half, he cherishes smoking now and doesn't dare to waste any of it. Haha, smoking is harmful to health. Zhou Feng looked at Qi Gang's bitter face happily. Okay, I have good news for you. Qi Gang immediately sat up straight. He knew that the minister had asked the old leader to talk alone. Something must have happened. Zhou Feng repeated the words of the Minister of Defense, making Qi Gang as happy as a child. Every time he talked to Li Qing on the phone, this upright man always felt that he owed Li Qing, so he had no choice but to come and harass the old leader whenever he had time. It's fine now, it's more or less compensation, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Don't worry, old leader, I will handle this matter beautifully and find professionals to take care of it. Qi Gang patted his chest and promised. Zhou Feng said nothing, smiled and waved his hand, asking Qi Gang to go down and make arrangements. He left this matter to Qi Gang. It just so happened that Qi Gang was going to Xiangjiang next week, so he was asked to go there with 3 guided missile frigates. Qi just walked out of the office and dialed Li Qing's phone happily, but Li Qing's voice asked him to wait on the phone. After a while, Li Qing changed a phone card and called, Brother Qi, what's the matter? Li Qing asked in confusion. We just talked on the phone not long ago, and I didn't expect Qi Gang to contact him so quickly. He, Brother Li, I just reported the situation, everything is okay. We are also preparing to send you 3 2,500-ton 053 series guided missile frigates. Qi Gang puffed up his chest, finally getting something good for this little brother. The 053 series guided missile frigate is the youngest and has the best performance among the active guided missile frigates. Although there is still a big gap compared to the frigates of the beautiful country, it is not easy for China to come up with 3 active frigates at this stage, which also represents the importance that the hometown attaches to Li Qing. When Li Qing heard this, he felt a rush of heat rush into his heart. With his current ability, to be honest, it would be no problem to buy a Perry-class guided missile frigate directly from the beautiful country. Now, 3053 series guided missile frigates drove directly to the door of his home without saying a word, and he couldn't help but be moved. If the 3053 series guided missile frigates are sold at market price, they will cost at least about $600 million. Money comes second, the most important thing is feelings. Brother Chi, how to do this? Chi Gang laughed loudly. What does this mean? We can't buy the things you took out no matter how much money we spend. Brother, this is not a transaction, this is recognition from your hometown and a gift to you. You have to know that most of us approve of you. Chi Gang lowered his voice and said solemnly. In his opinion, last time they were unreasonable and stabbed Brother Li in the back. There was no guarantee that Brother Li wouldn't have some grudges in his heart. This time it was considered compensation. Li Qing smiled and understood what his hometown meant, so he no longer refused. Some relationships don't need to be so clear. If they are too clear, they become a transaction. For 5,000 years, China has been focusing on human relations and sophistication. Okay, thank you for the gift from my hometown. Brother Chi, don't worry, I will get it as soon as possible about the Variang Li Qing promised. Chi Gang communicated again, and then the two hung up the phone. Li Qing put down the phone and shook his head with a smile. His hometown was more worried than he thought. Especially the 2-160. Just now Chi Gang said that experts will come with some engineers right away and are expected to arrive in Kiev, the capital of the Urmao, tomorrow. Prepare yourself for the response. Crow! Crow! Li Qing shouted towards the outhouse. At this time, Zhang Dongzhou hurried in. Brother. A crow? Li Qing asked curiously, as if he hadn't seen him for a day. Zhang Dongzhou tilted his lips. Brother, crow went skiing. The weather in Urmao has been getting colder in the past 2 days. It is only November and snowflakes are falling in the sky. It feels like winter has suddenly entered. Skiing? Isn't he most afraid of the cold? Li Qing asked curiously. He still remembers that when Crow first arrived at Urmao, he had to wear 3 layers of socks. Brother, could it be that you ate donkey hide gelatin? The nourishing power hasn't gone away yet. Zhang Dongzhou touched his chin and guessed. Tisk tisk, donkey hide gelatin nourishes yin, I haven't heard that it can replenish yang. Li Qing was also confused. Forget it, leave him alone. Dongzhou, tell Tian Yangsheng to ask him to pick up people at the airport in Kiev tomorrow afternoon. They are all from his hometown. The leader seems to be named Gu. Li Qing ordered. Zhang Dongzhou responded immediately and hurried to find Tian Yangsheng. The next day, I was on a plane bound for Urmao from Beijing. Teacher Gu, it's freezing cold today. Why do you think of going there in person? Can't we just go? A middle-aged man whispered to an old man with gray hair and a thin body. What do you little brats know? You are so clumsy, what if you break it? The old man surnamed Gu scolded the students beside him. Others shrank their necks when they heard the old man's voice. After all, they were all brought up by teacher Gu. Even though they are engineers now, they still respect him. The old man's name is Gu Chang, born in the 1930s, and now he is over 70 years old. He has experienced all kinds of processes from the old China to the new China, and is the chief master in China's aircraft manufacturing. This time he came here in person against all odds just to bring the White Swan home. He knows how difficult it has been for China over the years, since the Russian Bear withdrew the experts who assisted China in the 1960s. All fields have been crossing the river by feeling the stones. Although they are catching up, there is still a big gap compared with the powerful United States and the Big Mao that inherited the legacy of the Russian Bear. The reason why he came in person this time was to see how big the gap was between them and the designers of the 2-160. Teacher, I am still dreaming. Can anyone really buy the White Swan? Are you sure it is not a castrated version? The middle-aged man next to Gu Chang deliberately lowered his voice and asked. Gu Chang glared at him, I don't believe it either, but I believe in the country. What? You know more than the top leaders of the country. The middle-aged man stopped talking immediately. His teacher had a very hot temper. The plane slowly landed at the Kiev airport, and the group hurried out of the airport under the impatient Gu Chang.